Hello and welcome to the agenda. I am Ajay Kaul. In this program today, we will analyze whether Sri Lanka is moving away from India. India and Sri Lanka have enjoyed close relations for centuries, but lately an impression is gaining ground that Sri Lanka is moving away from India. There is an impression that Sri Lanka is moving closer to China at the cost of India. It is also rebuilding ties with Pakistan after the chill in the wake of the terror attack on Sri Lankan cricket team in Lahore in 2009. So what is Sri Lanka up to? We will try to analyze this in the agenda today with two experts. We have with us retired diplomats Ambassador Deepak Vora and Ambassador Shilkant Sharma. But before we begin our conversation, have a look at this small report.
All doesn't seem to be well when it comes to the attitude of Sri Lanka towards India in practical terms in the recent past. There is also a sense that it is moving closer to China, which is in the process of wooing away all the smaller neighbors of India. There have been developments recently because of which the impression is gaining ground. One is Sri Lankan government's decision to cancel a $500 million agreement under which India and Japan were to develop the East Container Terminal of Colombo Port. Days earlier, Sri Lanka gave a Chinese company a $12 billion energy project under which plants will be built in 3 islands off the Jaffna Peninsula, about 50 kilometers away from the Tamil Nadu coast. The two developments have upset India, which is reported to have lodged a protest with Sri Lanka. New Delhi has stated that the energy project given to Chinese company poses a grave security threat to India. It has also told the Rajapaksa government that India will not let the East Container Terminal plan get washed away just like that. The Rajapaksa government has also not done much on devolution of powers to ethnic Tamils despite repeated assurance to India. There is a perception that Sri Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa are nursing anger against India dating back to the civil war as they believe India had done wrongs. Bureau Report.
Now let's welcome our guests, Ambassador Vora and Ambassador Shilkant Sharma. Welcome to the program, both of you, sir. So let me first go to Ambassador Vora about Sri Lanka's attitude or approach that is changing apparently towards India. We have seen a project being, big project being cancelled by Sri Lanka recently and another project being given to China. Ambassador Vora, how do you see that?
First of all, sir, thank you very much. An honor always to be on your show with you, Mr. Kaul, in particular, to learn from you. And
Pleasure,
of course, to have my very distinguished colleague, Ambassador Shilkant Sharma. We don't make them like him anymore. We broke the mold after we made him. First question here, why is Mr. Niazi, Imran Khan, going to Sri Lanka when he has been denied meetings with Muslim organizations and an offer to address the Sri Lankan parliament has been withdrawn?
I thought I'll come to that later, but first is
Okay,
about
you want to talk
cancellation
about
of
China
projects.
first?
Yeah.
All right.
About first
Certainly.
projects.
When you talk about an impression being created that Sri Lanka is going closer to China, let me just put it to you like this. This impression does not seem to be shared by too many people, especially after the Sri Lankans themselves acknowledged that handing over Hambantota was a mistake, thereby suggesting that it was a debt trap and Sri Lanka didn't know what to do. It will not happen again. Now I put myself as a Sri Lankan. I'm surrounded by I'm south of a very powerful neighbor called India that helped me to maintain my territorial integrity against the liberation tigers of Tamil Eelam. I have a neighbor who is acknowledged as the third most powerful military in the world's third largest economy in PPP terms. Now, India had some internal issues for some time. China came with a checkbook and said, listen guys, if you need any money, here's a blank check, sign on it, don't bother reading the fine print, we'll deal with this when the time comes. So here was this white knight on a shining horse, and then when the time came to repay, and the Sri Lankans said, we don't have the money to repay, the Chinese said, no problem brother, we'll just take your territory. So it became a loan for land scam. And this is going on everywhere, sir. Sri Lanka was one of the first to say we made a mistake. So I do not share the opinion of people that simply because China is offering more money or a certain project that involves India has been cancelled, it means that Sri Lanka is moving away from India. It cannot afford to, sir. Please credit the Sri Lankan military, the government, the civil service, the diplomats with a certain amount of ability and sense. I don't credit the Pakistanis with that. They understand, sir, that you cannot be unfriendly with India and hope to develop in the region that is pretty much dominated by India. And I say this with a full sense of responsibility.
Right. I'll come with supplementary later, but I'll first ask Ambassador Sharma about this impression that Sri Lanka is moving away from India and maybe moving closer to China. What do you say?
Well, first of all, let me meet my dear friend and my batchmate, Ambassador Deepak Vora. It's good to see him. Now, as to your question, this has been, dogging us for last almost a decade. There is this talk about the string of pearls that the Chinese are trying to create.
Right.
Their aim is to, somehow or the other dominate the Indian Ocean. And so they have been up to it. But as Ambassador Vora said, the Sri Lankans actually are a little more cautious. They have not completely, conformed to what China would have liked them to do. And our relations with Sri Lanka stand on a very solid, sound footing. Like, take this for instance, the very burning question with the pandemic. We have given them 500,000 vaccines free. And they have placed an order for something like 1.4 million more vaccine of AstraZeneca from Pune. So they are not using the Chinese vaccine. That itself is one indication that they are trying to, aspire for an independence, and they want to do things which are in their best interest. India has no problem. India has always felt that all our neighbors are our friends, and we are bound together by mutuality of interest. So, and we have no coercive kind of approach in our diplomacy. And Sri Lankans realize this. They realize this, and the Chinese didn't like it because when we came to Sri Lanka's help instantaneously almost when the tsunami hit in 2004, and Sri Lanka, our Navy was very much there. I think it rankled in China's ambitious mind because they were then thinking of Indian Ocean. So they have then thereafter worked on it. The thing is that they have Pakistan, which is their iron brother. So now they are inspiring Pakistan to come to Sri Lanka and to offer bridge and road. Now, between Pakistan and Sri Lanka, where is the bridge and road? Where is the road? Where is the land connection?
Right.
What connectivity is Imran Khan talking about? So he's just speaking what the Chinese have told him
In
to
fact,
speak there.
Imran Khan, for going to Sri Lanka, he had to use Indian corridor, air corridor.
Yes. So this whole, this whole South Asia, for instance, all the countries, with one or two exceptions, don't have any direct connection. They connect through India.
Right.
And still, this Chinese-inspired Pakistani, talks about Bridge and Road Initiative and there is a connectivity. What connectivity will he do? He doesn't have ships to sail to Sri Lanka, and he wants to connect Sri Lanka to Central Asia through the sea route. The absurdity of it is shocking.
Right.
But just to please their masters in Beijing, the Pakistani Prime Minister talks like that. And then there is this textbook, case of bilateral relations, a whole string of things to do. So they just repeat it ad nauseum. But that doesn't mean that you can give consent to that relationship. It is Pakistanis who actually were involved with in problem creation in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka was not at all on the terrorist net, on the Islamic extremist net.
Right.
But we heard that Pakistanis were trying to create a cell there, and they were the ISI and the Al Qaeda etc. were trying to trouble Sri Lanka also.
I'll come to that about Pakistan role, Pakistan involvement about later. So, but I'll first go to about China aspect. Ambassador Vora, since we talked about China and the projects, now the project, that renewable energy project or so-called energy project, which Sri Lanka has given to a Chinese company, we know what companies they are, which is just 50 kilometers from Tamil Nadu coast. And India apparently has already lodged a protest with Sri Lanka that it is a security threat to us. So I don't think it is a friendly gesture by Sri Lanka to give project to Chinese at the cost of, which poses a threat to India, a friend.
Mr. Kaul, in diplomacy, there is no stark black nor lily white. We in India have a long history of diplomatic interaction, and we in the Foreign Service understand that perhaps the dominating feature in diplomacy is shades of grey. Put yourself in the place of a Sri Lankan official who has to take a decision. He would shop around for what he or she considers the most attractive. In this particular case, they felt that China would be the most attractive. India has made its feelings known. We have to wait and see if this project goes ahead. If it does not go, it would not be the first project that has been cancelled by Sri Lanka or by any other country. Sir, I understand today, and I say this with full sense of responsibility, Ambassador Shilkant Sharma knows much better than I do. There are over 150 countries in the so-called Belt and Road Initiative. Sorry,
Yeah, right.
I refer to it as the Bilk and Rob Initiative because he bilks everybody and robs everybody. Yeah. Over 150 countries have signed up, and I'm told the latest figures are that well over 30 have either cancelled or asked for renegotiating certain projects. So Mr. Xi Ping Pong will probably be choking on his chop suey. So therefore, this whole thing about just something offered by China becoming an immutable cornerstone of any country's policy is not accurate, sir. Changes occur, and in this case or in any others, changes are likely to occur.
Right, Ambassador Shilkant Sharma, I'll come to you about, since I heard Ambassador Vora about diplomacy. At the same time, we have to keep in mind who is running or who is ruling Sri Lanka. The Rajapaksa brothers, who have been nursing grouse against India regarding the civil war. They have been, saying that India has been doing wrong and all that. So if those, people, those leaders are at the helm, so is that, like a natural corollary, or what do you think? Is it so innocent act, or there could be some motive?
You have the Chinese with a lot of deep pockets, and the stories abound that Chinese have been trying to influence leaders in all our neighborhoods, trying to use every trick in the trade. And there are also stories that they managed to buy a lot of influence over the Rajapaksa family. And this is being talked about that, and when he came back again, he started working on the China track. But the reality is that the argument against India are not tangible. Actually, when he was the president and he was fighting the war against the
LTT,
India's position was very different. India was
India helped. India helped his government at that time.
India did not come in the way of his internal problems. All that India wanted was that the rights of the Tamils should not be obliterated, and we kept talking about the 13th Amendment and things of that sort, which are important and vital for them to have a stability internally. And now these internal stability issues are their problem to solve. All that India could do was to help them, but we don't interfere in them. But the Chinese came and they said that, look, anyone trying to undermine India, Sri Lanka's security, China will come to their help. So unnecessarily, they are trying to drag Sri Lanka into a kind of a security quagmire, which Sri Lanka was not. And even today, nobody is threatening Sri Lanka. So, but this is the influence that China wields, and
No, what? No, Ambassador.
how much does it go? How much does it go into the Sri Lankan system? The proof of the pudding is that Rajpaksas have come back to power now, but last elections they lost. So there is a democratic way of government in Sri Lanka, and if you go one way, to the extreme, then you might also be on the might have to pay at the housing because people might have a different view. So I think by seeing things in stark terms, you might be tending to push Sri Lanka away from you, which is what is a caution which is required today. We have to deal with them.
What I was trying,
as a neighbor.
yeah, Ambassador, I know we had to be friendly with them, but at this end, what I was trying to, which I mean, Indian government is concerned, not me, that about the projects. I mean, the project given to Chinese company are to build some projects in 3 islands which are just 50 kilometers from Tamil Nadu and off the
So
coast
India
of
has-
Jaffna. So India is
India has
concerned about that.
registered-
So that cannot
India
be
has
a friendly act.
registered
That's what. Yeah.
India has registered its concern about it.
Yeah.
And so, that's as far as we could go today. India has made it very clear to them what it implies. So, I think that's the first step. You can take the other view that that whole area is India's security parameter.
Right.
Just as you have the extended economic zone, in the same way, there is a certain in the maritime zone, there is a certain extension of maritime security.
Yeah.
And India, Sri Lanka, Maldives have also been engaged for the last 15 years for discussions on maritime security. So even in this maritime security context, a country like China, which is violent brother of Pakistan, which has India as its only enemy, China's coming so close is really bothersome to us. So there could be an extreme view that we will not allow this. Now, if there's an extreme view like this and you can take action, that's a different matter. But the other route is to persuade them that, look, dear friends, this is inimical to our interest. What you're doing, it doesn't go with our security interest. And we had bid for that project, and you could have talked to us. And so, it makes sense to give projects to the nearby countries, rather than bringing a country which is far off. Of course, with deep pockets, but these pockets might leak someday, then they'll have nothing to give you. Whereas in our case, we have bonds which go to centuries. So Sri Lanka should see these things in the perspective.
Yeah.
There is the Sri Lankan elite, which is also, which at times snipes at the Indian, diplomacy and Indian leaders. They snipe at Delhi. And maybe it is, and being a democratic kind of a system, some of these people who have grudge against India, they come to power there. So they start thinking of sniping at India. But there is an old saying, especially in maritime, since we are talking maritime dimension, you don't make enemy with crocodiles if you live in water, So Sri Lanka, I think, realizes that.
Yeah.
If they're going to push India to kind of a hostile net, who will lose?
Yeah. So, Ambassador Vora, now talking about Pakistan angle. Now, Imran Khan Niazi is right now in Sri Lanka, and apparently having good talks. He is tweeting that we have had very good talks and we are going to build relations. But as Ambassador Shilka Sharma mentioned earlier, Pakistan is the root cause for Islamic terrorism, or we saw only 2 years back the deadliest terror attack in the church in Sri Lanka. So, in fact, those roots were also traced to Pakistan, and at the same time now they are becoming friends. How do you see that?
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to make a comment. My distinguished colleague, Ambassador Shilkant, referred to that nonsense about string of pearls policy of China. I think that policy is now dead, especially after they felt not the string but the sting of India's people in Galwan. I think they've forgotten all about this nonsense. Question, why is Imran Khan going to Sri when he has been denied meetings with Muslim organizations and the offer to address the Sri Lankan parliament has been withdrawn?
Right.
Very simply, sir, he is going to show his people that Pakistan still has a foreign policy. You may not believe it, but he claims that it still does. And he wants to show his people that Pakistan's leaders do not have to limit their visits only to China, even though this visit to Colombo has probably been cleared by Beijing. Second, he wants to tell his people that he assured the Sri Lankan government that they now have an alternative to India, i.e. Pakistan, forgetting the fact that Pakistan is broke, is in a pit, is in a morass, sees no future. Third, he wishes to project Pakistan as a responsible stakeholder in the region, not just the global epicenter of terrorism, which it is. In essence, sir, Pakistan has nothing to offer Sri Lanka except empty promises and recollections of a brighter post-independence past. You know, significantly, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, who glorified terrorism by calling Osama bin Laden a martyr, and whose president has just attacked France for curbing anti-national Islamic activity, this joker is going to Sri Lanka. What is he trying to do? Match India? He would be a lunatic to even attempt to do so. We are a $3 trillion economy, he is 300 billion. Sir, our total lines of credit to Sri Lanka, and we gave that several years ago after the tsunami. I think we gave $170 million to repair some railing that was damaged. Total is probably well over $1 billion.
Right.
And what does that buffoon who masquerades as Pakistan's foreign minister, what does he say? Oh, we are going to give them $15 million for defense cooperation. Look at the difference, sir. I mean, these guys, शर्म नहीं करते अपने, go around saying something, इतने बेशरम हो चुके हैं that they don't seem to realize what is happening. Now, let me just conclude this by saying that yes, it is true that Gotabaya Rajapaksa's family has been accused of not being very friendly to India because of our involvement in the civil war there. Well, we don't need to remind them that in 1971, when we overflights across India for Pakistani military aircraft, Sri Lanka gave them refueling facilities. But we don't hold that against anybody.
Even in towards the end of the war, India helped them. Our military people were there. In fact, 2 of our Air Force people were injured in an LTT attack.
Absolutely. I have no doubt. I've been there myself. So what I'm saying is that we helped in the reconstruction. We are doing so much. We are involved in projects like airport, hospitals, railways, temples, stadiums, etc. We built 50,000 homes over there. What I'm saying is, sir, that if the Rajapaksas are anti-Indian, November 2019, just after his election, we were the first country he visited.
Yeah.
And we announced a $450 million loan to China. So it's very interesting, Ambassador Sheel, that $400 million was developmental projects and $50 million to fight terrorism. Happy birthday. I mean, we were telling him that, we'll teach you how to deal with Pakistani terrorism. Trust, sir. Now you've come to the vaccine. Our vaccine offer to the world is the latest example of India's outreach and India's growing international stature. As you've just pointed out, they are buying almost 14 million doses of the Indian vaccine, either directly or they are getting it through the World Health Organization's COVAX program, quite apart from the 500,000 doses gifted by India. I'm told that it has rejected the Chinese vaccine, and usually unreliable sources tell me, Ambassador Sheel, that even Xi Jinping, the Supreme Emperor of China, has preferred to be vaccinated by the Indian vaccine rather than his own. Now, there is, 10% of the population of Sri Lanka are Muslims. They've come under increasing scrutiny since the Rajapaksa brothers came to power. And they say that the government has tightened civil rights space and pandered to right-wing Sinhala Buddhist nationalism. But then the recollection of April 2019's Easter Sunday bombings are very fresh in people's mind. Do you recall that the former defense secretary and the police chief were arrested for alleged negligence? Then there is the nightmare of Sri Lanka's external debt. I mean, it is now almost 50% of GDP what they have to pay. They have to pay a huge amount. They don't have the foreign exchange. Therefore, sir, I believe that Sri Lanka leaders understand that the one nation that has a clean track record of coming to their help in moments of crisis is their neighbor called India, which for Sri Lanka and for all the neighbors in South Asia wants nothing but peace and development. Whereas the other fellow is a threat. He is imploding and he would like to take some of these countries with him. I think this visit by Mr. Niazi is a non-starter and it will be laughed at for years to come, sir.
Okay, Ambassador Shikhar Sharma, is it possible that, see, I may point out that Sri Lanka's case, I mean, against war crimes is coming up at the UNHRC in next month. So I think Sri Lanka has asked for Indian support there. So could it be quid pro quo with India, that, I mean, cancellation of the project? Some people feel it may be because of that, so that India supports Sri Lanka. I mean, he is an accused. Mahinda Rajapaksa is facing, could face trial if that is, he is convicted there. So what do you say?
Well, you know, I have, when you talk of Human Rights Commission, I have a different take. Ever since this Chilean became the head, they also snipe at us. So they are playing, and the kind of people who are, countries who are members of who are elected members of the Human Rights Commission, they don't have much to speak for themselves. You know, China,
like
Pakistan,
China,
yeah. So, where, I mean, the Uyghur fellows, their entire culture is obliterated. There's, of course, the Tibetan culture, which they have completely tried to obliterate, and the fact that the Dalai Lama lived in India is anathema to them. But this is China for human rights. And as far as Pakistan, the less they talk about anything, the better. And particularly in the human rights, they have no face to speak about.
Yeah.
So, Human Rights Commission is dominated, or at least has abundance of some of these biggest, it's like the foxes who are trying to guard the chicken coop. And so for that Human Rights Commission, Sri Lanka, you know, I have my reservations. But apart from that, what Sri Lanka does about its internal situation and explains to them is for Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
I think in the past, India has supported them, has tried to protect Sri Lanka. I'm sure when 2008-9 they were fighting that war, India was supportive of Sri Lanka.
We have to conclude brief comments. I know we have been supporting them, but we have been having that dicey situation of at the same time thinking about Tamils, ethnic Tamils also. So I think we have been having a nuanced approach on that. So,
now we have a nuanced approach, certainly. Certainly we have a nuanced approach. But, this business of calling people at some wretched Human Rights Commission or some international organization, which is dominated these days by all kinds of, not very...
not with the clean record.
Countries.
Not with the clean record.
We should not give credence to them.
Okay. So, time of our program is over, but I guess it's elaborate subject for which I think we need more discussions. But thank you both of you for participating in this debate today. This is all in the agenda today. Thanks for watching. I'll be back with another important topic tomorrow. Till then, goodbye.